Welcome to Keep Smiling, the e-commerce customer experience podcast. Selling products online is challenging and can lead to poor customer experiences. Each episode, we explore how entrepreneurs and organizations in e-commerce are delivering delightfully unexpected experiences to their shoppers and customers. Amazon, Shopify, artificial intelligence, we'll discuss what matters today and what you can do to build a better e-commerce business. We'll show you how. Over 1 year ago, in May of 2018, well before we started this podcast, we joined Kate Valentine of Keyword, the Amazon Insider podcast, for a webinar entitled Creating a Strong Customer Service Strategy, How to Increase Sales Using Great Customer Service. In today's show, we're sharing the final 20 minutes of a live Q&A at the end of the webinar. You can find a link to the full webinar audio in the show notes of this episode at sellersmile.com/008. If you're an Amazon seller looking for more high-quality audio content, please take a listen to Kate's podcast shows. She actually publishes 3 different types of shows, all aimed at Amazon sellers looking to improve and to grow their businesses. Her main show features exclusively current or former Amazon employees. One show features people that have built their businesses alongside the Amazon marketplace, and another features stories directly from sellers themselves. To find all of these, go to keywordpodcast.com. Enjoy the Q&A.
All right. And hey, guys, thank you. That was awesome. I love the 3 T's. That was fabulous. So we're going to spend the next 10 to 15 minutes on Q&A, if that works for both of you. I've been collecting all of the emails the questions that we've been getting from people. So the first one we got from Valerie, should you offer a refund every time a customer has left a bad review on Amazon? I think this is a tricky one.
Yeah. Michael, do you want to take it or do you?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. The way that I feel about this is that I feel like you should always prioritize their experience. So whether that means issuing them a refund or perhaps giving them a free replacement, I feel like oftentimes a free replacement is probably a better approach. Unless they had a completely negative experience with the product itself, maybe they're saying that it is something that wouldn't work for them. But in general, perhaps sending a replacement is much better than just issuing them a refund. However, don't be afraid to issue refunds. Some of our more generous sellers who have amazing customer service, who have great reviews, they actually will send a replacement and issue a refund because it really kind of goes above and beyond. I don't necessarily know that that's always going to be necessary, but something to take into consideration for sure.
All right. Our next question, this is from Natalia, and this is a really good one too. So she had a situation where an unfair review was left. A customer purchased a product and forgot to check mark the shipment as this is a gift. And then when the package was received, the packing slip had pricing. And even though the product was in great condition, she still left a 2-star rating. So she offered a reship and a refund, and the buyer accepted both, but never took the unfair rating off. And Amazon did not approve a correction. So what would you guys suggest in that situation?
Yeah, that is a great question. Sorry that happened, Natalia. My first inclination on that is, you can only go so far. And I think she did a stellar job of trying to reach out and change that customer's experience. I don't doubt that the customer's experience was changed, and it's unfortunate that they weren't a little bit more collaborative on changing their review there. But I think one thing that you can do in that situation is make sure that the public reply to that review indicates the actions that you took. So because like Michael mentioned, a lot of the value of responding to these reviews is for your next buyer, your future buyer. And buyers know that there's a range of other buyers out there. Some are very hard to please. And so in other words, if I were a prospective buyer and I saw this angry customer with this complaint, but then I see the seller response, sent a new package, reached out to them and tried to make it work, to me, that's enough to convince me that I'm still safe to purchase, to make a purchase from this seller. I think she did a good job also with following up on Amazon to see if they were able to do anything about the situation. Unfortunately, they couldn't help her, but doing your best to appear attractive to the next buyer, I think, is the best way to handle it.
Awesome. I'm going to jump to a couple that are just popping up in our chat now. This is from Sarah. Can you offer a refund or a replacement as a seller directly on the site? Is this allowed?
Directly on the site. I'm assuming they mean through Amazon, Seller Central. And certainly.
I'm going to ask her to clarify. Sarah, if you're still on, I'm going to ask you to clarify.
I'll just kind of address that point though. Just kind of walking through it in my mind here. If I'm going through buyer seller messaging, I can click on the order to view the order detail page. And from that page, I can take some actions on the order. I can issue a refund. I'll have to choose or select a reason for the refund. And I'm even allowed to write a message to the customer. So those are certainly allowable through buyer seller messaging or Seller Central. And also there's an opportunity to issue different types of refunds. You can issue a reimbursement for return shipping if the customer somehow incurred extra costs. So there's a whole range of things you can do. And those are supported by Amazon. The other aspect of that about sending a replacement, if you do have your stock in FBA, we do replacements as a multi-channel fulfillment order. And from what we're familiar with, this is completely allowed. And as long as you have stock, it's a great way to send a replacement using FBA. You can choose the shipping speed from standard to 2-day. It'll cost a little bit more, but sometimes to put some urgency on it is going to be a better customer experience. And I'd also recommend if you're going to send a replacement, make sure you copy and paste the Amazon email of that buyer into that module. So when Amazon does ship it, they'll get an automatic email of that shipment notification so they can stay up to date with the status of that replacement as well.
Hey, just a really quick tip to add to that, more of a technical tip, is whenever you're on Seller Central and you're responding to a customer's message, over to the right-hand side, there's the order number that's attached to that message. Be kind of wary of that, because anytime that someone has purchased from you multiple times, you'll actually see that the order numbers are stacked. So you can scroll down in that section and it'll actually tell you perhaps which order they're replying to, because in that case where you're offering a refund, you might want to make sure that you're offering the refund the right order or perhaps the product.
Great point.
Thanks. She did clarify, responding to a customer's review. I'm going to take this one, if that's okay with you guys. I would not suggest offering a refund or a replacement on a customer review, simply because it's in a public forum. And at that point, you don't want to open that floodgate of suddenly everyone that posts a negative review expects to get a refund.
Completely
or
agree.
A replacement. Especially sometimes customers do make mistakes, and you may not be willing to offer a replacement or a refund for every single situation. So it's best to try to direct that conversation off into a buyer seller message and figure it out from there. If they're a repeat customer, someone that has ordered from you a lot, you can see that in a buyer seller message too. You can't necessarily see that from a refund. And I would say you should take that loyalty into account. If someone has purchased from you multiple times, you'll be able to see that in a buyer seller message. You won't see that on a review.
A quick thing to add to that, Kate, as well, is that the templates that we're providing as a part of the webinar today, some of our examples, you'll notice that if someone did have a negative experience, in the message that we're writing to them as in the public comment, we're keeping the resolution a bit more general. We're saying, hey, we're so sorry this happened, but if you contact us through this link, like the Amazon store contact link, then we'll make sure that this is completely addressed for you. So that way it's taking it offline, but you're still letting them know that you're offering a resolution.
Yep.
All right, here's another one. This one is from R. What if a seller message is actually spam? This person gets random emails in Chinese. And if you take more than 24 hours to mark them as spam, does that count as taking too long to reply?
Yes. We see a lot of these. And unfortunately, it does count. And I would urge if this has happened several times, maybe you can contact seller support with this case, describe what happened, reference the email, and maybe those can be removed and the statistics can be corrected. But we see these all the time and we report them as spam. Amazon allows you to report the message and we mark it as no response needed. And that's how we deal with them. Unfortunately, it's one of the downfalls about having to check in so often, and it can ding you. But yeah, not much other advice I have on that.
That's where, having a schedule to check in routinely will help, because we've definitely seen that before, where we've taken over a customer's account and we've noticed, oh, this message is over SLA, but it's actually just a spam message. So like Ty mentioned, always marking it as no response needed, and then following that up by reporting it as spam. So hopefully that will filter out that result in general.
Mm-hmm. Here's a quick question. This is also from our SellerSmile. You guys handle all customer service. Essentially everything that was just in your presentation, you do for your customers. But R had a specific question. Do you offer the service to respond to product questions when product questions are asked on a detail page? Is that something you guys respond to and handle?
Yes, it is. Thanks for asking. This might, so what we do is whenever those product questions are posted, an email is sent to the email in the Amazon account. So just to make sure that SellerSmile gets those, we have to make sure some of the settings in Seller Central are configured to make sure those messages are forwarded to us. But then even as an invited user to your account, we don't have to be an admin. We can actually go in, and when we respond to those user questions, we get the seller badge as well. So to the customer, it still appears as a very authoritative answer. And these are the same subject matter that we get in the emails. So we're happy to respond to them, and we believe it should be part of that comprehensive strategy.
Okay, I have about 3 more questions. This is a last call for questions, but we have a couple more that I want to get through. What, in your mind, is the right timeline to send an email after an order has been placed? This is from Natalia again. Should you send it 2 days as soon as it's delivered, 3 days after it's delivered, 1 week? When should you send that thank you email?
Great question. This is something that's extremely important to me as well, because I firmly believe that you should probably keep your messaging sequence to 1 to 2 messages maximum. The more concise, the better. So if I were to suggest maybe 1 email, I would say you can either send it perhaps a day or so after it's been shipped. That way you're not conflicting with Amazon's shipment notification, but you're still kind of making a quick send them a quick message to establish your presence, saying, hey, I'm here if you need any help, right? So I wouldn't use that message to request for feedback or to request for a review. I would use that message to kind of let them know that you're there in case they have any questions, and to perhaps even offer like a tracking number, even though, again, Amazon sends that the day before. But if you don't send out that message at, a day or 2 after shipment, I would say send it perhaps like right at the time of delivery. So again, we've mentioned Feedback Genius several times, but Feedback Genius is one of the only tools that I'm aware of that actually look at the tracking information for each order and then sends a message based on the delivery event. So I would say the day of delivery, send them a quick message saying, hey, your order should have been delivered today. Please take a quick look at everything in the packaging, make sure everything looks good. And if everything looks good, then leave us a review or leave us some feedback.
Yeah, Michael, to iterate on that, or to Natalia, also consider your product, because one of our clients sells a product where maybe the user of the product wouldn't have an opinion formed right away. It might take weeks of the usage to get to know what they really think about it. So I think the schedule of an email should depend on what is the purpose. Are you asking for a product review? And then consider, how long will it take my buyer to have their opinion formed? And so we see a mistake a lot of times is that a message gets sent too soon and the customer hasn't even received it or opened it. So be cognizant of that and allow your customer time enough to have that opinion.
All right. I've got 2 more questions. What is a good open rate for messages to buyers?
That's a great question. Actually, I want to say, if I remember correctly, last time I checked on this, it was right about 2 to 5% is a good open rate. However, again, this can be heavily impacted and probably has been heavily impacted based on the unsubscribe rules that Amazon's put in place. So take that with a grain of salt, but it's actually a really small percentage of your buyers who are opening your emails. Again, probably 2 to 5%.
But tools like Feedback Genius will track that open rate for you. And one of the biggest advices that we can give on this is copywriting is going to be the major reason why your emails are opened or not. Is that subject line eye-catching? Is it interesting? So if your open rate is lower than you'd like it to be, I would either outsource a copywriter or spend a lot of time crafting some good messages and maybe even split test them to see which ones are more effective.
And just a quick addition there. We actually at SellerSmile, we do offer that as a quick consultative sort of approach, is taking a quick look at your outgoing messaging to make sure it's optimized for your, to make sure it's optimized for proactive customer service. So that way, whenever you're first contacting your buyer, you're reaching out in the most efficient way.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And this is going to be our last question, unless another one pops up. How can we contact a buyer who never contacted us but placed a negative review? How can you reach out to them in order to help?
That's a great question. Ty, do you want to take that one or?
Yeah, and feel free to jump in. So yeah, this is a common question because it's kind of one of the Amazon doesn't make it so easy. So as you know, Amazon does not require that the buyer post their official account name when they're leaving a review. So a lot of times these are pseudonyms or nicknames. And the only thing you can maybe really determine if it's a verified purchase is which ASIN they purchased. There's not much other information to go off of. So there's two different ways that we've found with varying success. And one is there's a range of software tools that will attempt to match a buyer to a product review automatically. Search through the orders of that and see if you can match the name that was posted to orders, maybe searching in the last 30 days. Because we found that buyers will typically leave a review or a comment shortly after they receive a product. So at least you can get in the ballpark of maybe time received where you can identify that buyer. But it's a problem that we haven't fully resolved yet. And until Amazon changes the way they choose to display that information, maybe they'll reveal more information for verified purchases, but still a problem for us. Did you have anything to add to that, Michael?
I do. Obviously very top level is if there is a public name, you can search for that name, do like a Command F or Control F search on your website. Sorry, on the orders page of that ASIN, right? So Ty mentioned that briefly, but I would say that maybe 1 out of 5 times that's something that helps us locate those reviewers. But in addition to that, though, even if it's like generic and it says just Amazon customer, at the very least, comment on that review and ask them to contact you in order to resolve their issue. Say like, hey, I'm so sorry that this occurred. Please help us resolve your issue. Here's a link to contact us. So that way you are still at least, showing showing the public that you've responded to that review and that you actually want to resolve their issue. So again, at some point in time, you might have to cut your losses and decide that, this is a negative review that I can't remove. But at the very least, you are, having a public presence there, showing your resolution.
Mm-hmm.
And let's just jump right back into kind of responding in that 24-hour period. Yeah, Michael, you're right. There's no penalty if you don't respond within 24 hours. And if you hit no response needed, you're right. That 24-hour clock is irrelevant. Debbie brings up a good point. What if you don't want to respond right away? You need more information and you want to keep that message open. What would be the best way to handle that kind of situation?
Ty, unless you want to take that, go ahead.
I remember just when SellerSmile first started, we had an issue with this as well because we were corresponding, with these open cases that were pending, and Amazon's system doesn't do such a good job of allowing you to do that. So what we did is, kind of an elaborate system of taking notes, but if we were corresponding back and forth between us and the seller trying to resolve this issue, we would send them an email number in the subject line. So when they got back to us with an issue, we were able to copy that order number and then search for that order number in the buyer seller messaging interface. And then even though it's been resolved or closed or responded to, it'll pull right up. And that's the easiest way to find it. We haven't found an easier way to keep it organized other than just having these notes and records and being able to search by order number.
Just a quick addition there. I think that this is a great use of like a tool like Trello, for example, right? So I think it's completely okay if you don't have a resolution for that customer right away. One of our templates actually addresses that. You're essentially letting them know, hey, we received your inquiry. We're looking into this issue for you. We'll be in touch, shortly. So you've responded to that email, you've sent it, and then you make a note of that Amazon buyer email address and order number. I would advise you to take down both and perhaps add it into like a Trello card so that you know that these are still pending messages. But one more thing to add to that is that if you look at what we were discussing earlier in the performance tab, the customer dissatisfaction rate, there's some great information there regarding when someone has gotten a response and how they felt about your response. But you'll notice that Amazon is labeling that as this tool is currently in beta, right? So they explicitly say like, we're not doing anything about it now, but they talk about it in a way that kind of insinuates a future development in that realm. So start to spend time in there now, because even if you are marking your messages as no response needed and just coming back later, that's actually going to matter at some point in time. If you look at the customer service dissatisfaction rate in that performance rate.
Mm-hmm. We have one last question from Michael. How can you make sure your email gets to a customer when they've opted out of receiving emails from you as the seller? If someone has opted out and you have their email on some sort of blacklist, just don't email them. You don't want to make a customer mad.
Yes.
We would completely back that up. Don't, one quote that the way I like to think about it is, be less like Gordon Ramsay, more like Fred Rogers, Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, because you're going to be always err on the side of being overly friendly as opposed to, being hostile or aggressive with your sales approach.
And you will be able to send them if there is for example, if there's a warranty issue with your product, or if there's a recall issue with your product, you can be able to contact them for required information.
Yes. I believe the way it works is unsolicited messages, right? Those are the ones that are blocked. Solicited messages are the ones where the buyer has actually reached out to the seller, and that somehow temporarily removes this block where you're able to communicate back and forth with them to resolve the issue.
One more thing I'll say about that is at SellerSmile, at any time we have a consultation call, we always advise to stay away from black hat tactics. Like don't waste your time on them. They might give you a temporary, kind of boost, but don't spend your time on that, because in the long run, what's going to end up winning is having a brand that's trusted and kind of following things by the book.
And Michael, not Michael, Michael, the person that asked that question. I hope that I interpreted your question correctly. If not, you feel free to contact us and we can clarify that for you. Mm-hmm. I just want to thank everyone. Thank you, Ty. Thank you, Michael. Thank you for everything you've given us this past month on customer service. We've really been able to dig a lot into it, and I really appreciate that. So thank you guys, because customer service, it's important no matter what you're selling. If you're a big company, small little brand, no matter what you're doing, it's something you've got to pay a lot of attention to. We will be resending out the webinar. It'll also be our extras episode for this week. We'll be sending out the recording. If you have any questions, you can contact SellerSmile.
To find the show notes for this episode, go to sellersmile.com/008. If you found this conversation valuable, hit subscribe and you'll get the next episode straight to your device. Thanks again, and keep smiling.